Do you have to saturate a market because you don't have a strong message? You're not memorable? Do you have to be seen 10,000 times before they finally remember who you are? Or are you an elderly gentleman with a sledgehammer charging at a truck on the highway that's kind of humorous, and Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer? That's more memorable. And maybe he doesn't have to saturate and show as much airtime as the individuals have been hurt, injured, car accident, question mark.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Answering Legal's Everything Except the Law podcast. I am your host, Nick Werker. If this is your first time tuning in, this is the podcast where we share expert advice on all the parts of running a law firm that attorneys weren't exactly trained for back in law school. Now, in this episode, we'll be focusing on the top of niche legal services, or niche. I feel weird when I say niche. Deciding whether or not to specialize your firm is, of course, a huge decision, and attorneys will need a great deal of expert guidance in order to make that decision. So fortunately, we have an expert on the subject here with us today. Chris Dreyer is the CEO and founder of the SEO agency Rankings.io. And this past fall released a book called Niching Up, The Narrower Market, the Bigger the Prize. The narrower the market. That's a tongue twister. I'm sorry.
Here you go.
We're thrilled to have Chris join us for the conversation. Thank you for being here, Chris. Can you introduce yourself to us a little bit and tell us about your journey working in digital marketing?
Yeah, thanks for the intro and thanks for having me. A little bit about my background. I was a history education teacher. I managed a detention room for the bad students and had all this free time to surf the internet. And there's only so much sports that I could surf, and I wanted to use my time more productively. So I typed in how to make money online, the query that probably everyone starts with. And somehow I found Ed Dale's course to make your first $10 with affiliate marketing. And I think that course, I made like $20. But by the end of my second year teaching, I was making about 4 times the amount doing digital marketing that I was teaching. So I pursued it full time, had some ups and downs, found myself at an agency, rose to be their top person. And it's the classic, like, hey, I want to try this on my own. I want to go start my own business. And I started Attorney Rankings. That was the name at the time. And at the beginning, I was hustling, doing everything. I would do anything to make revenue, right? I didn't have optionality. I had to take the worst jobs and just stuck with it, found my passion for SEO and niched up to personal injury marketing. And that's where I'm at today. And we've had Rankings has been around for 10 plus years. We've been on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing list of companies in the US for the last 5 years in a row. And we're just really passionate about helping personal injury attorneys get value from digital marketing.
That's amazing. I was one of those kids in the detention rooms. Not often, not that often, but I was there. But I want to dive straight into your book, Niching Up. Can you tell us what the book is about, sort of your inspiration behind writing it?
Yeah, I just had a lot to say about niching. I read several books that I found on Amazon, and I didn't feel that they resonated with me personally and didn't really cover the positives in enough detail with stories. And I could speak to it because I was living it. I was practicing what you preach or whatever the saying is. And a lot of them, so just as an example, most individuals, when they think of cons, they think of shrinking your market cap or your total addressable market. And that's the biggest con that most people think of. In actuality, that's not the biggest con. Most of the time, the biggest con is increasing the effort and sacrifice on the consumer. And what I mean by that is, for example, if I only do SEO and the client needs traditional media or they need other services, they have to work with another partner. So that means they have to work with multiple people. It's more effort. Anytime you get your client away from homeostasis, it's bad, right? Because there's effort. And that's why Walmart sells groceries now. Individuals come there to shop. Oh, let me pick up my groceries as well, and then I'll head home. Right? It's just easier, effort and sacrifice. That's why fast food is so successful, for convenience. And I just went down this journey of ups and downs and tried to use myself as an example. Like, look, this is what worked for me, or this is what didn't work for me. Do with it what you will, so to speak.
So I think that there's lawyers who are starting out, they feel sort of the way that you did, right? I need to take on every job that comes through the door. I need to be a general practice. I can do a divorce. I can handle personal injury. I can go handle your traffic ticket. And then I think the hesitation for niching their practice is that there will be fewer cases for them to work on and that they'll make less money. So obviously there's pros and cons, right? You can have more work if you're a general practice, but maybe your cases and your focus and your strategy will be better if you niche out. So what kind of pros and cons should law firms be aware of when they make the decision whether or not to sort of like concentrate their practice on one area?
Good question. So I started with the cons, and I'll kind of continue there with the cons. So we've already hit the con: effort and sacrifice, lowering your TAM, your total addressable market. A couple other cons are you're going to be repeating the same thing. So if you like a lot of creativity and bespoke everything, and you like the challenge of doing something unique every time, niching may not be for you because you're going to have a lot of repeatability. The other con is if you choose a bad niche and you're more susceptible to industry risk. For example, if you niched into maritime law during COVID, you were in trouble, right? You went from doing well to nothing. So there are those risks. Those are real risks, all of those. Now the pros. The pros, whenever you choose a niche, you actually become an expert because of focus. So not only are you perceived as an expert, but you actually become an expert. Malcolm Gladwell says you got to put in 10,000 hours into a craft before you become an expert. If you're doing everything and under the sun, you're never going to put those hours in. But if you're just doing motor vehicle accidents or specifically motorcycle accidents or truck accidents, you could become a real expert at that craft. You also know how to maximize your advertising spend. You know where your consumer congregates, so you're not just throwing paint against the wall, you're throwing paint directly at the consumer's face. And your conversions will increase because you know your avatar, you're speaking to their language, to their pains, you're using your copywriting. You're not talking about, for example, me, I'm not talking about leads, I'm talking about cases. I'm not talking about even cases, I'm talking about motor vehicle accidents. And the specifics help you be more relatable and more trustworthy, which helps your conversions. It also helps you increase your fees because you're worth it. You can increase your fees because you are worth it. You create more value. Fees are from value. If you're the best DUI attorney in the country, I guarantee you that you can charge higher fees than just regular guy that does DUI because you're worth it. You have the skills to prove that. There's added profit when it comes to efficiencies and eliminating waste. When you're doing the same actions over and over, you can create dialed in processes that lend itself to avoiding duplication of efforts if something's done incorrect. You can improve your velocity, which is profit. For example, for me, even in a legal space, if I do an editorial calendar and I'm trying to choose topics to write about for content marketing, if I had to do that for every area of the law, we're talking tens of thousands of topics: criminal defense, trademarks, employment, business, whatever it is. Or I can just do an editorial calendar for personal injury attorneys, and most personal injury attorneys are targeting the same areas, and just iterate on it. So in my opinion, the pros significantly outweigh the cons in most cases just because of how much competition there is in the legal space. It's so saturated. And I think there's some real advantages to consider when niching. It's not right for everyone, but it can be right for many individuals.
So personally, my story is I joined this company. We were originally just an answering service for everybody. And I started out in sales. I used to call plumbers, HVAC guys. Who else were we calling that was really interested? I don't know, like construction companies, all of that sort of thing. And what we noticed was that we weren't able to, like you said, we weren't able to build a process for our customers because we had to train our agents, and our whole service had to do so many different things as opposed to just getting really good at one thing. So when we noticed that lawyers really liked, and really what we were doing was like, as salespeople, we were just targeting one industry at a time because it was just easier to get a list in order to talk to those people. But lawyers would ask us, can you do this? Can you do a legal intake? Can you patch me the phone call? And once we started building our features around that, it became easier for us to set ourselves apart from the competition. And at first it's like, well, we're ignoring literally every other small business on the planet in order to just go after lawyers. So I do understand the hesitation for law firms to want to go niche. And for us, it made sense because we were seeing the success happen right in front of our eyes. So it was very easy for us to just kind of chase the carrot. So I want to know your take on how long newer law firms, or not necessarily newer, but anybody who's interested in making the leap to go to a niche in order to build these processes, to become experts, all of this stuff that you get from becoming a niche law firm, how long do you think that they should wait in order to make that leap?
Such a good question, and I want to cling on to what you yourself said and what I've experienced, and I'll talk about a book as well. Most mentors and coaches, they'll say you need to niche, and it's very frustrating to me because they typically didn't start off niching. They went through an iterative experience. For myself, I did affiliate marketing for hundreds of sites, worked with many industries, home services, everything, construction, and then found legal, and then found a sub area of legal, personal injury. You had, you the home services and these appointments, and then you found your niche in legal. You have to have these experiences to find your purpose, your passion, and where you can generate a profit. You have to have all three. If you pick a good, a niche and you can't make a profit, it's not a business, it's a hobby. If you have an area that can generate a profit, but you hate it, you have to push yourself to get out of bed to even go to work, it's not going to be successful because you're not going to do the things needed to make it succeed. And for me, you have to have these experiences to find what works best for you. So there's this book, it's called Range by David Epstein. It talks about, in his book, he uses the example of Rafael Nadal, the famous tennis player. And his parents put him in all kinds of sports. They put him in basketball and baseball and all these sports. And he was phenomenal at tennis, and he focused in on tennis. Can you imagine if his parents just put him in basketball or maybe just baseball? Like, he's a great athlete. Maybe it would have been good in those sports, but would he been the standout that he is in tennis? We'll never know, but I would say that chances are probably very low that he would be, right? So I think that you have to have these experiences determine where you have a passion, where you can generate profit, and that's what the name of the game is.
That's a very pertinent example for me. I played varsity tennis. I was not nearly as good as Nadal. I'm also not a lefty, and I'm very, very clumsy. So I don't know how I made varsity tennis.
I've never played tennis. Yeah.
Really?
We didn't have it at our high school.
It's a hard sport.
I went to a very small high school, like incredibly small. We didn't even have a track team. It was basketball, baseball, football. That's it.
No track is crazy. No track is crazy. So I like the idea that you have to try a bunch of things, but I guess we're assuming that the law firm owner or the lawyer looking to go out on their own has some idea of what they're passionate about. So how do you encourage lawyers to like find their passion, what they're good at? What tips do you have for them in order to make sure that their pursuit of this niche goes as well as possible?
Really good question. I would say At the beginning, if you're unsure, you might want to work for someone else. You may want to get the experience because you're going to get paid. You're gonna learn and see what you like and you don't like. You could do internships. There's a lot of things. I think that time would be very worthwhile because, I mean, this is your life. Even if it's a year or 2 years, for the rest of your life, you're going to be choosing something. Not that you can't iterate in the future and change, but I know a lot of, there's an individual, Paige Sparks. She has a really big social media presence, and I like her approach because she's focusing in on personal injury, but every once in a while she'll find something she has a passion about. She's like, I'm going to do this. So that's another approach too. You can niche, have your area, your main hedgehog concept, and then something else comes upon. Maybe you can take it if you want. You have optionality. That's the biggest thing. You don't have to say no. You have optionality.
I guess that's a mindset thing, right? Is like, once I'm a niche, I can never take anything else again. But really, if you're going out on your own, you can do whatever you want. Yeah. That's the beauty of like owning your own business and being in charge.
Yeah, and us. So we've got 64 clients right now. 62 of them personal injury, 2 are not. There are 2 situations where I chose that, hey, I knew we could help these individuals. I wanted to take on the project. We're doing really well with them. But it's not 100%.
I take your point. I don't know how many non-lawyer customers we have, but I do know that there's a very symbiotic relationship between legal marketing companies who have a lot of high call volume because of the nature of the firms that they work with. So I know we work with them just because we're already talking to lawyers. So I do take your point. It doesn't have to be 100%. You can, if you feel that you can help that person, you're interested, and you don't refer the business out, why not? You know, I want to ask you this because this is also, obviously, this is your expertise. So I think the biggest changes that law firms who decide to go niche need to make when it comes to, I don't know, like going out, one of the first things you have to do is like really brand yourself and market yourself in order to attract the kind of clientele that you're trying to work with. So what are some of the biggest changes that they should make when it comes to marketing and the way that they present themselves?
Really deep question here. I put marketing into 2 buckets. I put it in direct response, or I put it in branding. Direct response is more short-term orientation. You're looking at things very on a quick scale. You're looking at cost per lead, cost per acquisition, things of these. It's very linear. It's, more inputs get more outputs. So things like Google Ads, Google Local Service Ads, SEO, things of that nature can be direct response, and you want to look at that from a short-term orientation. Then there's branding. Branding is hard to quantify. It has a much greater impact across the board. Attribution's murky. And what I like to say is at the beginning, when you're trying to generate revenue quickly, you want to focus on direct response, networking, referrals, things that you can do for low expenses, social media. But as you grow, it becomes more about the branding game and your unique selling propositions and how you're different. And there's so much that goes into that in terms of your messaging, and that's a whole iterative experience on its own. But I think a lot of times PI attorneys get this wrong, and they'll say, hey, you have to saturate TV in order to succeed on TV. Yeah, you do. You have to be memorable, and you have to have repetition. But do you have to saturate a market because you don't have a strong message? You're not memorable? Do you have to be seen 10,000 times before they finally remember who you are? Or are you an elderly gentleman with a sledgehammer charging at a truck on the highway that's kind of humorous, and Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer, with his southern drawl? That's more memorable. And maybe he doesn't have to saturate and show as much airtime as the individuals have been hurt, injured, car accident, ? So there's so much that goes into it. And I think at the beginning, if you need cash, direct response, over time, you're going to shift more to branding.
We will be right back after this short ad.
Who doesn't want to be a successful attorney with a busy practice but still have that life? Having those lunch breaks, playing golf, going on vacation. Answering Legal allows you to.
I really just don't have a need for a receptionist anymore. I've used Answering Legal services for the past 2 years, and I wish I retained Answering Legal 10 years earlier.
Answering Legal is an extension of my firm. It allows lawyers and paralegals to actually work without answering the phone. Anytime I leave this office, I know my business is still running.
Sometimes we're in court or we're dealing with other clients, and because of Answering Legal, my partner and I are able to address any client concerns or any new clients immediately, and it's really increased our business.
If you wish to enhance your client base, improve your client satisfaction, and at the same time reduce your overhead, then hire Answering Legal.
I want to ask this because I think, and we touched on this before, is that law firms who decide to go niche don't know how to charge higher prices yet for their specialized services. So do you have any advice for law firms on how to, I'm going to say, justify their higher prices to their prospective clients?
First, let me think about it from a PI perspective. So typically, and there's some hybrid versions, you got your pre-lit firms, the heavy volume, they're not trying a ton of cases, and then you've got your trial attorneys. The pre-lit firm is mostly marketing to B2C consumers. The trial firms typically are marketing to their peers for referrals. If you're a litigating firm and you can get maximum value, it's a great idea to niche and be seen and perceived as an expert because you stand out. And if someone's thinking of giving a referral, they're going to think of that individual because they know that individual can get more value than what they could themselves. I always use this example. Joe Freed, nationwide trucking attorney. He only does truck accidents. And he knows the instruction manuals inside and out. He knows he's done more. Who knows how many truck accidents he's done. David Craig, Munley is another. There's like 3 or 4 of these individuals that really specialize in trucking. They're going to get more value. They don't even have to raise their fees. They're going to get more value. They're going to draw in these referrals from the biggest truck accidents. So just through the nature of niching and being an expert, you're going to get more value. Now, on the flip side, let's say you're a criminal defense attorney or a family law attorney. Even the family law attorney that does the celebrity divorces, like they're willing to pay more to get it right. There's this perception of experience that they're paying for. Like you're a new family law attorney. Maybe you haven't had these reps for these big individual cases, but this person has, and I'm willing to pay that extra for the experience. And I've even heard this. I was reading this book, and I can't remember. I think it was in a book, and it was like there was something broke at this construction site, and this guy come over and spends a little time analyzing it, comes over and he swings a hammer one time and he fixes it. And he's like, that'll be $2,000. And he's like, you're not paying me for the swing of the hammer. You're paying for all the other times and the experience of me knowing where to swing the hammer. And that's the same effect whether you're doing these massive DUI cases or divorces. That's the way that you have to look. There's perception there of experience and value.
When my parents still try to understand what it is that I do for a living, I use that exact metaphor, that I'm the guy who knows where to swing the hammer. I don't swing a hammer 1,000 times a day, but if you come to me and you got a big problem on a cruise ship, I know exactly that one spot that needs like this. I do that. And they're like, they pay you for that? I'm like, yes, thank God. And I do think that people's perception of branding, like I find it funny. So I had this friend a couple of years ago. He was looking to get a divorce. He was starting his life over. He had some personal troubles, and he was doing really good. He's on a good path. And I'm like, buddy, you need to get divorced from, first of all, this other woman had moved on. She was getting married. So they really did need to get a divorce because she was still married and she was trying to get married again. And I'm like, I'll help you because we work with so many lawyers. I will help you find a divorce lawyer on Long Island. And he's like, no, don't worry about it. I already got one. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, he already got one. He already got one. Where did you go? To Google? And he's like, yeah, I just called the first guy on Google. And I know that guy's, if you're in my area and you Google divorce lawyer Long Island, Brian Salamone is going to show up. Whether you like it or not, that guy owns that whole thing. And his whole shtick is he does very high net worth divorces. So he charges a lot of money. Like his whole website is, he's got these Lamborghinis and he's got these boats and the boat trips and all this. And I'm like, I'm not going to name my friend. I was like, buddy, you don't need that guy. You need like an uncontested, she's ready to get out. You're ready to get out. You both have no money, no house, no assets, no kids. Like this is just the signing of a piece of paper. You don't need him. So I think branding is so important in that sense too, because there are the divorce lawyers who are, hey, I'll do the uncontested. Come to me if it's easy. But then there's also, and this guy was just confused and wanted to get out of it as quick as possible. So he called the first guy that he found. But I think branding can also do that for you too, is like if you're the celebrity divorce lawyer, celebrities are going to go to you and they're going to be willing to pay more because there's so much more at stake. And then you can be a higher volume based divorce. It's the same. Mm-hmm. If you ask the two people who practice those two, who own those two law firms, what do you do? They're both divorce lawyers, but it's so different.
I couldn't agree more. 100%.
I want to ask you, do you have any favorite examples that you might be able to share with us of law firms that you've worked with becoming super successful on a very focused and particular type of law? Obviously, probably personal injury.
I'm going to answer this a bit different. Most of the people that come to me are pre-lit, the mass majority, and most of them don't go to these sub area of the law. So the specialist motorcycle or truck. I think one of the smartest examples of marketing is Law Tigers. I don't know Law Tigers' exact model. They're not a franchise. They're like licensing, and they hire individuals that ride motorcycles. Those individuals have to go to all motorcycle events. Their website's all about motorcycle accidents. Motorcycle accidents tend to be good cases, right? Who are they going to trust? The motorcycle rider in part of their community or the individual that doesn't ride a motorcycle? So I think that's a very strong example of a business model. I've seen individuals like that focused on TBI or brain injury or sexual assault, or I just talked to an Atlanta firm that is, their positioning is your outsourced litigation department, and they don't advertise anything to consumers. So they're say, hey, we're not a threat. We're not going to take your money and then go advertise against you. We're only going to work off of referrals and advertise to our peers. I think there's a ton of opportunity. I don't know why I don't see it as much. The Philly slip and fall guys, right? I imagine they're getting a ton of slip and falls. I'm trying to think of some others. There's not enough. I don't know if there's a massive amount of fear, but you would think with this amount of saturation, you would see niching be more common.
You mentioned fear. In your book, you say that every time you consider niching up, it feels like stepping off of a cliff. So it is a very big leap of faith that attorneys have to make in order to, turn down a significant portion of the market. So what advice do you have for lawyers who are very much so struggling with that decision?
I would look at the data first. Break down your cases. Do you have a particular grouping? Are you getting 80% of your cases from bicycle accidents? Maybe that's the nudge that you need to go into bicycle accidents and be a part of that community and those charities. And there's tons of those events. I mean, to maximize your grassroots marketing. Where are you getting your look at the data? So I think it starts there. I'm to the mindset that you have all these experiences, do a lot of areas of law, get a lot of reps in, get the data, then make a decision. Have the data work for you. That's what I did. I 7 years in, looked at the data. I found that 70% of my revenue was from less than 40% of my clientele, personal injury attorneys. It wasn't as scary when I saw the data in front of me. Before I looked at the data, I'm like, is this the right decision? Oh, no, this is the right decision. That's what I would say. I would say whatever you know that you can generate profit and you have a passion for, that's the nudge too. You love helping, maybe you do nursing home abuses and you just have this passion, like it's going to come across in your marketing. It's going to, in who you work with. And then there's a rising tides type of impact. That's what I would say. I would say, don't rush it. Maybe it starts out as a side hustle, a side passion, and then you go all in, but just look at the data before you make those decisions.
I do like the idea of your passion and like sort of like your hero origin story, right? Like the why you do what you do. I love there's like, I think there's a dog bite lawyer who he's around here. I don't know why I'm so drawn to this dog bite lawyer, but I love his marketing. I love his whole story. It's like his daughter was bit by a dog and he was afraid of dogs, and he's always been afraid of dogs, but then he became an advocate for training dogs the right way, and that, dogs don't bite people just because they're inherently bad. And so he's in the community. Oh, I wish I knew this guy's name. I'm so bad with names. What is wrong with me? But there's always, like for me, I always thought it was so great that I get to help small businesses thrive, because I come from a family where we, my parents were both small business owners, and I saw them struggle and not be able to branch out, and they were okay with that. That's a fine choice to make too. They liked their business, they liked what it did for them, and the hours that they had to work. But if you're looking for more, and I get to help you find that more, it just makes me sleep like a baby at night. I got to tell you.
I couldn't agree more. And I love, you hear that, it's Monday, or I can't wait till Friday. That's not me. I love coming to work on Monday. There's not any sort of dread or stress. And it lets me do better work, and it lets me feel healthier. Now I know I need to work on the diet and exercise, but I don't have that added stress like impacting me because I know I'm doing what I'm passionate about, what I enjoy doing.
So if our audience has liked this conversation, which I imagine that they did, can you tell them where to find your book and all the other places that they can and should follow you?
Yeah, if you want to check out the book, and I'm going to pull it up right here, Niching Up, the Narrower the Market, the Bigger the Prize. It's at Amazon. I think Kindle, it's like $2.99. So you can pick it up at Amazon. If you're a personal injury attorney and you need help with your marketing, you can head on over to rankings.io. And if you want to connect with me or ask me a question personally, I'm most active on LinkedIn. It's Chris Dreyer. That's Dreyer.
Chris, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. Thank you to all of our listeners. We hope you enjoyed this conversation, and we will be back with another episode of Everything Except the Law soon. Be sure to check out previous episodes of our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, and the Answering Legal YouTube channel. Links to everything covered in today's conversation can be found in the description of this episode, including the link to the book and Chris's contact information. We hope to see you next time, everyone.